Hey.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey. Oh, that's a nice background.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, but the mic was confusing and like came in front of you.
It took my face. How are you doing, Joel?
Pretty good. It's boring and rainy today, so I can like be at the computer.
It's the same here.
Nice. How did we do last time? Did you kind of announce this on the metagame Slack or Discord, or because we got a bunch of random people that dropped in, right?
Last time?
Yeah.
No, I think this was a pretty small group. There's probably 5 or 6 different ecosystems that are working on different achievement type things or different badges across the ecosystem. So that was the primary use that we were looking at for ceramic, at least on my side.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anyone on here that wasn't here the last time? Guess not. Cool. But maybe we could do like a short intro section just to kind of, since it was a long time ago we spoke. So, hi all, I'm Joel from 3Box, lead detective. You wanna go next, Peter?
Sure. Hello, I'm Peter from Metagame, Metacartel, and other DAOs. We're building decentralized profiles and other people are doing that too. So yeah, let's work together.
Scotchpreneur working on Raid Guild and Maker badges, just launched on the forum at Maker and interested in achievements across all the networks.
I'm Zach, also in the ceramic 3Box team.
Michael as well. Ceramic 3Box. Excited for this. We have some good things to share and updates from last time.
I was excited to see the invite come across.
I'm Paul, same from 3Box, working on ceramic and IDX in particular.
Yeah, I'm Danny, also on the 3Box and ceramic team. Good to meet those of you I haven't met before.
Anyone else?
Sorry.
Dekan.
From Raid Guild and DAO House, just excited to hear some of the updates.
I'm Spencer, also from Raid Guild and DAO House.
Cool.
Hey guys, I am Pepo from the Underscore Protocol. Happy to be here.
A lot of people dropping in. Yeah, Matt.
Hey guys, how's it going?
We're doing a quick intro.
Oh, sweet. Sorry I'm late. My Zoom link wasn't working. It was just like loading. Like the Zoom website was like not loading at all. Cool. Is it my turn to intro?
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Hamad. I'm one of the players of Metagame, member of Metacartel, and builder of the metaverse, I guess. Yeah, that's me, I guess.
Cool. Did we miss anyone?
Yeah, there's Van, Fabri, and I don't know if Anton introduced.
Wait, yeah, Vin from DAO House, mainly. Also Metacartel, Raid Guild, Metagame. all the communities love profiles.
You want to give an intro, Anton or Farby, or should we kick off?
Hey, yeah, sorry, my mic was off. Yeah, I'm Fabi. I'm working on Hype. Yeah, we are very excited about profiles, and we are also integrating 3box in the Honeypot UI. It's basically a DAO which we want to integrate profiles, and yeah, basically that's really excited for the call.
Yeah, hi, I'm Anton, and I'm not working on something special, but I'm interested in to see the updates about this profile.
Cool. All right, so I guess we will be like a little bit more structured this time than last time. So I guess we'll start with just an update on IDX, where this at. We had some changes to the spec, and we have a library now. And then kind of after that, kind of open up. And I think we had 3 main topics that we talked about last time, or that we at least wanted to touch on. Those like custom profile entries, profiles for DAOs, in what way that could be achieved. And I think the final thing was like account verification, so you can like verify or Discord or Twitter or whatever, and like how we can make that extensible. But yeah, so I think it still makes sense to start with a quick intro on the new IDX spec, because we actually took some time to kind of simplify that a lot since last time. Last time there was like a lot of structure to it, and a lot of kind of things to look at, where now we've kind of simplified it to make it kind of easier for a developer to create their own data sets that have are independent from other data, and you don't need to think about like where in the directory that should fit and stuff like that. So basically what identity index is now is a mapping from a definition which defines a data set. So that could be a profile, it could be links from crypto addresses to your profile or your identity, or it could be verifications from like social profiles or accounts. And then, so the definition is created by a developer. It's like one of a definition per, I guess, data set. And then there's a reference that's created for each user. So each user gets their unique reference, which either contains the data directly or contains links to the data. So that's kind of like the short description of what IDX is now. So in this, I think this diagram like illustrates it pretty good. So for example, we might have this basic profile definition that lives here, and that's like created. Basic profile is something that we from 3box create, and we can see like a user 1 has a basic profile in here, and they have their own kind of reference here that points to a ceramic document which contains the profile. And see user 2 also has this definition, and they have their own reference. So that's kind of the most basic thing you can, if you just want to associate some data with a user. And of course you can like create other types of profiles. And then we can do the same thing for like crypto accounts. So here we have a list of crypto accounts. But also interestingly, an apps can define data to live in other places. So here we have app A definition, and app A basically tells the user to like, hey, create a reference, but also create a text out thread. And this reference contains a pointer to that text out thread. So data is, this reference only contains like the links that allows you to find where the data is stored. And likewise, that textile is like a peer-to-peer database or BTB as well, but you might have like some centralized data stores like secure data stores, which are from W3C, or you might even do something like, which I think we talked about last time, where we have a bunch of data on users that are on Gitcoin, and that lives on their servers. So we might just like, oh, store Gitcoin profile. And then like in this reference, we basically just like say, oh, this is the user ID on Gitcoin, and this is the endpoint you use to fetch that data. And this is kind of the schema that's expected for the data. And then you just like go there and fetch the data. So then you can kind of describe data that lives even on kind of Web2 services. But it's all kind of, you find the data through the user. Yeah, so that's kind of the high level overview of IDX. I could probably show you how a simple definition looks like. So actually, no, let's go back here. So a definition, let's see. Yeah, so definition contains like a name, just a name for the data set, and then a description that describes the data set. And then it contains a schema. So the schema is basically the schema of the data in here. So I'll show you the example with a, let's see if we can find this.
And those are just JSON schemas, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, let's see if we can do this. Oops. So here's the basic profile, and basically, yeah, this is the data that's in the basic profile. And this is the kind of schema, JSON schema that defines that. So this schema will be deployed to a ceramic document. And then we'll create a definition document that contains like the name, the description, and the Docker ID of that schema. And here it has like a simple config that just tells us to use a specific tag for the profile. But yeah, so I mean, that's basically what's needed to create like a custom custom definition with some data. If you if you just want to store the data in ceramic. Michael or Paul, anything that I kind of glaringly missing on kind of IDX overview?
Not glaringly missing. I think to provide some additional context and use, like, you know, if it wasn't super obvious, like you would basically, you know, for every, you know, depending on the ambitions of this group, if there's going to be like, I think last time we had discussed like maybe one basic profile with potential extensions that each application might want to use. So you might have like a basic JSON schema that represents all the common fields, and then you might have like, you know, a metagame extension that where users can add specific fields to metagame, or in different contexts you might want like, you know, different groupings of information associated with the profile, like which DAOs you're in or which things you might want to do. So I think the thing that's still to be figured out and decided is, you know, with what we're working on, we basically, you know, with 3Box now, like, you know, I think it's about like 30,000 people or accounts have profiles. And so we're going to be migrating all those into this like basic profile schema. And then the question becomes like, do you guys just want to use that as a base and then extend it with like another definition? Or do you want to create like a new one as people onboard to one or any of your applications? But it's completely configurable to whatever direction that we decide.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with like the current way 3Box works is just like the discoverability of these schemas, and like having a way for multiple different projects or teams to use these extra things. So I think like having whatever the basic profile is good, and then anything else we can sort of add as like separate schemas. Yeah, I think that makes sense. You mentioned that you guys have a library now. Like what's the status on all this in terms of like when it's going to be like when you guys are planning to migrate over 3box data, when it would be like kind of ready for like real usage, I guess.
Yeah, maybe Paul, if you want to give a short demo of the IDX library.
Yep, sure. Share my screen. Okay. So what I can show here is just a simple script about setting up a schema and definition to then be used with IDX. So most of it is using a kind of complementary library we have for IDX, which is IDX tools. So it's really meant for development purposes. And here we're also using Identity Wallet to authenticate with the Ceramic instance that is running in the background. So here it's really about authenticating over Ceramic with the wallet we create. And then the more IDX specific things are here creating a schema. So it's a very simple JSON schema for a profile that just sets a name, makes it required, and that's it. So from it, we get the ID, which is a document ID on the Ceramic network that we can then use to create a definition using this ID. And so with this definition, we can then use this definition to create these profiles with the validation from the schema. And here, so when creating a definition, what we need really is a name that is just used for identification purposes and the schema. And we can also set a description and a URL. So mainly for discovery. So by looking at an identity index, we can see what are the definition and what they are for it. So this is just a script here to bootstrap the definition. So just making sure here I've got this unique identifier for the definition that I can then use with IDX to uniquely reference some content that is gonna represent the profile. And so what I can do then so I will show it with using the IDX CLI. So I can create a new DID so that I need to interact with the identity index. And then I can start setting data on my identity index using this DID. So I can do index set on my DID and with the definition I just used. And here I can show, for example, putting some wrong data that if anything works well here, so we can see that the data I'm trying to set gets validated actually by the Ceramic node, and it's rejecting the update because it doesn't pass the validation set in the schema. And instead, if we make it valid, we can set the content there, and the same way, just retrieve it using the same definition ID we have here. And so obviously here we're just using one of the definition I just created, but the idea is that we would create a bunch of these definitions, such as the basic profile, that would be used as constant in IDX, in the library we are providing. And so instead of having to keep track of all these definitions, you could just get or set the basic profile and get the data or set it within your application, with always the ability to create your own definition and just use this ID like this.
Cool. And yeah, I mean, this is a demo. I hadn't actually seen the CLI, but it's pretty cool. But we also have the JavaScript library, which you can like do all of this in the browser.
Yeah. So we have the IDX library with the documentation on idx.xyz, and that provides all these APIs. So having the main ones here being the get and set methods that can be used as shown in the CLI.
Cool. Yeah, and to your question, Hamad, like, how do we like have discoverability of these things in the beginning? And I think that the easiest thing to do is just like create a CAP that describes the kind of additional data for the profile. And I think if you kind of just copy the basic profile kind of stuff and just like make your own version of a CAP. So I think that because then it's like fairly easy to discover for someone else that's like looking at what data can I find on Ceramic. And then in the future, we will kind of provide more advanced way of doing discovery for data. But I think that's a good start.
That's cool. I'm imagining something like Graph Protocol has, like where just on their website they sort of show like all the different subgraphs that you could potentially use. In a similar way, it might make sense for Identity Index to like sort of highlight some of these schemas that are more in use, and just increase the chance that like users will reuse an existing schema, then create like duplicates of something similar that might exist. Like we don't want to have like 10 different, DAO membership schemas or, these sort of things. So I think that will sort of be fairly important to like have that, I guess, consistency across the ecosystem. Yeah. Cool. What's the performance like compared to like relative to like how 3box is? Because I know that's always been a struggle with like using 3box, is the slow performance of like loading the data and also trying to sync it and update it. Like what does that look like, especially when there's multiple schemas? Like do you when you like load up a profile, do you discover like all the schemas that are there and then load up each one of those and then
well, what we're doing right now, and I think would make sense for anyone that's like building on it initially, is so 3box, what it did, it's like bundles an IPFS node and then it syncs all the data from the 3box infrastructure nodes, and then kind of just like runs the entire thing in there, which is like great for decentralization, but it's like not the most performant thing. So what we're doing right now with kind of the first app we're building on Ceramic is just like we have an HTTP client of Ceramic that mirrors the same API as kind of the full protocol implementation, and basically we just like run that in the browser and communicate with a node that kind of has the data. So that's more performant because we don't need to like have that kind of network sync over libp2p. In the future, we want to move to have kind of a more decentralized approach and do the full thing. But there's many kind of things to take into consideration when like optimizing that. So we wanted to just like
for sure
start in a more safe place.
Yeah, I definitely think, especially for something like this, that the performance is much more important than like the full decentralization. So yeah, good to hear. What's like I guess in relative terms, like how much faster is it compared to the libp2b syncing and IPFS?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because I don't think we have specific benchmarks for that yet. We're kind of still, Paul is actually right now working on kind of the updated profile side for that uses this. And yeah.
Would it be like 10%, 20%, or an order of magnitude, or like?
I mean, since it's used, so I guess there's two steps. So like the first thing is like you need to make like an HTTP request for each document. So that could slow it down, but it should be like much faster because like 3box took like 30, 40 seconds at some points to kind of sync. So this should be significantly faster, I think. I don't know if you have a better feeling for that, Paul, or maybe Zach.
Yeah, I don't know really because I haven't have as much experience with 3box, and I've mostly used it locally, so it's pretty quick to run Ceramic locally, and synchronized with the node we are using publicly. But yeah, it's really as we're gonna start building kind of higher level applications on top of it, I think we'll have a better idea how it performs.
Yeah, we're also working on something for Ceramic, which is like advanced queries, which will allow you to kind of query multiple documents at once, so you don't need to like make multiple round trips.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, for some of the stuff like that we've been setting up in our backend, we just kind of cache stuff in between, so we act to have that like higher level of performance. But yeah, so does Ceramic have a testnet running right now? Like what's the status on like getting the 3box profiles migrated over, and like when can it like go beyond just like us locally running it to us actually like deploying it live?
So we actually have kind of a 380 Connect deployment that allows you to use MetaMask to interact with Ceramic, but it doesn't do the migration of the identities yet. I think that's something that I think Zach is working on in the next week or so. But that's kind of just like, so you get the same identifier, and then the next step for that is like migrating the profile. But the timeline for that is like, basically we have some breaking changes in Ceramic that we want to get in. I think with this group, like we can probably share like a demo of the profile app when that's like demoable, but it won't be like live with the kind of real 3box profiles until I guess very early next year.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds good. I guess, does anyone else have any questions or
yeah,
thoughts,
who owns the documents? So like if I create a profile on Metagame, am I the owner of that document and I can update it later? Like I really like that about the 3box profiles, where I can update my profile across apps and stuff. You're nodding your head, so awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's the thing with IDX. So all definitions are owned by a developer, but all references are owned by the individual, right? So for each definition, you can kind of create your own instance for that.
Awesome. And so then, if we wanted to make a compatible achievement definition to go inside of the metagame profile, that would just be an array of those definitions inside of the metagame profile, and then we would decide on the definition for the achievement or whatever.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine like we'll probably have some sort of schema set up for achievements that we could hopefully like standardize at some level.
Yeah. Totally.
Cool. Okay, I guess I can jump into some of the stuff we've been building and thinking about around guilds and our profiles and that sort of thing. So I'll share my screen. We have like the base version running. We started like figuring out our whole like creation flow. So we actually will be changing this from Enneagram to, let me open this actually. Like we'll have personality types in our profiles. So this might be another thing to add there. Player types, skills. So I was discussing these with Luke, and we sort of came up with like this set of like skills under these categories, like community, design, dev, engineering, strategy, and technologies, which is not kind of separate. It's just like specific technologies, I guess. But yeah, Raid Guild guys, I guess will be also interested in this sort of thing. But yeah, we'll have a schema for this kind of thing. I imagine like Gitcoin, Kevin's not here, but if you're listening to the recording, like I imagine you guys have something like this, and it might be worth figuring out how these lists of skills and categories and stuff are managed. And yeah, the other thing for us is the memberships and guilds. So right now, this is sort of pulling stuff from the DAO house subgraph for Moloch DAOs. But we kind of like pivoted a bit in terms of what we think about as a guild and like how we control access to membership in the guild and whatnot. We realized that like not everyone's going to have a DAO. Not every community is going to have a DAO. And like one common thread in pretty much all the communities is Discord. So we're actually thinking of using a Discord server as like the source of truth for a guild and who are the members within the guild based on like the roles of the members. You can say like, basically what you would do is you'd add like the metagame bot to your Discord. It'll read your members, and you can say that these roles count as like members of the guild. And then from there, with that bot, members will be able to sort of pull up their profiles, which would like kind of aggregate the data from all the other guilds they're a member of, 3box, all that sort of thing. So yeah, this has been this kind of like shift to like Discord as like a source of truth, because otherwise it's like, how do you manage who's a member? And you know, we don't want to create our whole separate like interface or separate thing to maintain for people to like add and remove members. So that seemed like the easiest low-hanging fruit for us to do it in that way. And it's cool too, because with stuff like Collabland and their Discord plugin, like they can automate adding roles based on like token holdings of a certain user. So it works nicely with that as well. And the other thing for the profiles is also brightID. We wanted to add the brightID verification, and like I'm thinking that it would make sense if we could just have the 3box / like IDX profile be brightID verified, so that each separate app doesn't have to like scan the brightID QR code. They can just like look up the person's like Ethereum address, get their like IDX profile, and see that they are brightID verified. I'm not sure how feasible that is. I feel like it should be, but that might sort of be against like brightID's designs, where they actually want each app to get people to scan the QR code. So yeah, still up in the air about that. And yeah, I guess this is more so for like the profiles in the various other communities. Like, what else would you guys like to see on these profiles? You know, we've had this idea of like the skills, the player types, the you know, what guilds you're a member of. So with source cred too, like right now we have XP as like right under the player, but with OneHive also using source cred now, we're actually going to like separate it out so that the source cred instance, or like each guild can have an optional source cred instance attached to it. So then we'll be able to say that, hey, this person has this much cred in this community and this much cred in this other community, etc. And like be able to sort of like use our Discord bot to pull up their XP and display how much XP they have and various other things. And yeah, I just wanted to like see, is there anything else that you guys would find valuable in profiles or that we're missing in the profile creation flow that you would want? Is there anything here that's like you wouldn't want, you know, and on the actual profile itself, like we kind of imagine these things as like modular pieces or cards, I guess. Each one of these could conceptually map to a schema in IDX where, you know, we might have an IDX schema for a person's NFTs, you know, their NFT gallery that they want to showcase, or all these different things.
Yeah, that's a good one. NFTs would be really cool. I mean, especially as guilds start to like look at using NFTs as like achievements and things to celebrate and reward players.
Yeah.
You guys have community profiles yet?
Yeah, so that's another thing, like the actual guild pages. So right now these are all just like pages for an individual person, but we want to have an actual guild page as well where we list all the members and we list like other information about that guild. And yeah, like the basics would just be like the image, the description, whatnot. But we might also want like stats on like how many members there are, or I don't know what else you would want. Like, do you have an idea of what sort of thing would be valuable to show on a guild page?
Yeah, probably similar, like basic calls to action, like you know, how to contact, where's the Discord, where's the link. Basically, like links, I think would probably be the most variable for communities to decide whatever is relevant to people. But some kind of call to action, like if I can click on Metacartel DAO here or something and see what that is, and see like members and things, and basic TLDR, and then links out to further references to either join or learn more, like those types of things would probably be fine for now.
What about OneHive? What do you guys think about these profiles, or do you guys have certain concepts or things in your player profiles that you might want to map over?
Yeah, and mostly we have like what will be recognitions for doing valuable things in the community. But I think all the schema for the guild is very useful as well. And yeah, I also agree about the brightID app. That will be useful to have one instance so people know how to scan the QR for linking every app. For example, in our case, we just linked our brightID in the profiles, but for now we just link the OneHive app to the brightID.
Cool.
It's interesting what you said before about potentially there being definitions like per category on that profile. So like if you go back to yours, like in the memberships or skills.
This thing?
Like the superpowers section, or like, I wonder, like, Joel, what do you think about that versus, so like definitions based on types of information? You know, there's like the basic profile, which is like, you know, your basic profile information, like name, image, description, you know, location, various things like that, but then not sort of creating app specific definitions or like DAO specific definitions, but rather creating like topic based ones. So you'd have like a definition that describes like a document that contains your skills or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that seems reasonable. Seems like a good pattern.
Yeah, I feel like for maximum interoperability, like even just the way that you like talk about it, it should be more so like, I guess it depends, but like positioning as like on a use case rather than like on a certain app is ideal, because like a certain app schema is not going to be really relevant to any other app because the way their app is structured is completely different. But what is relevant is like certain like use cases, like skills or, you know, NFTs or like these, I guess, different modules. And yeah, like we, you know, we can sort of like help like flesh those out, but I imagine like it would be most valuable if like IDX has sort of like these like first class or like, you know, recommended modules for these like high level more generalized and like widely usable things.
Yeah.
Like friends list, for example, or even like groups or whatnot.
So I have a question, guys. Do you mind if I jump in? I think it's for Joel or for someone from Ceramic. In the process of defining a schema that somehow limits this list, this is a good example. Like your superpowers, these are skills. You might. So I haven't played a lot with JSON schemas actually, but I imagine you can define a schema in which you limit the strings that can be in that field. Like it must be within this set. That's probably possible. But I wonder if instead of doing that, what if you want to exploit Ceramic IDX itself as the set definition? I mean, for instance, the content creation skill, instead of that being a string, it is actually an object. Like it has its own unique identifier in Ceramic. It is somehow referenceable, and then you can define the schema saying that the elements of the set of that property must be IDX within a given set, which would be the set of skills that, for instance, Metagame would create for their users. And then if Gitcoin creates another set of skills, they can decide to use the same IDX identifiers as Metagame, and thus facilitate interoperability because they are not using strings, they are using some sort of IDX that gaining some network effects or something, people start identifying one IDX with one given skill and prefer to use that. Does this make sense, Joel?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think, so this is something we kind of discussed a lot, like things in this general area of like what is like this definition and like what does it represent and like how much stuff should live in the reference and stuff like that. And yeah, we talked about that a bunch, and I think like it's the most likely thing. So right now IDX should support you to do that type of thing, but it will probably be like less performant if you put like one definition and reference for each kind of individual thing. And I think it will also be a pain for you as a developer to kind of go through and create like a definition for each and every item. Like you would need some very automated system to do that. I mean, that might be where things might end up, but I mean, I think for convenience and for like just making it easy to understand for like developers and probably for performance in short term, it makes sense to group them a little bit more because like that's just going to be easier for you to develop. Okay, I create this one schema and then I have the data. And if you're browsing schemas, like you don't have to pick like each individual item. So then like maybe you have to do groups and it becomes like, yeah, you can do that. It becomes more complicated. And we might end up there later if that's something that's very powerful. But I think for now, like using kind of a little bit more data grouped into kind of a larger set makes more sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I had like something to potentially add. I think what this is really close to, if I understand correctly, is like it's almost like definitions. Like basically, not sort of making any assumptions about whether it's feasible to implement, but theoretically what you could do is like you're basically creating a dictionary or like a set of skills that like this skill is spelled this way and it means this, and that skill itself gets like a unique identifier, and then you're adding that like that unique identifier is like a ceramic doc ID, right? And so then you're not adding strings, you're adding references to a defined object, right? That's sort of like, if I understand correctly what is being proposed, because then basically you're just creating skills objects that get a ceramic doc ID, and then you're adding those immutable doc IDs. So like if Gitcoin is adding JavaScript and they, maybe they type it for some reason Java space script, someone else is just typing JavaScript one word, all lowercase. You don't have those collisions. You can just like reference a canonical skill in the network.
Yeah, I think like with that, the main thing I guess is like the long-term like maintainability of these things. Like if we create this document and want people to select their skills and we do all that, it's best, it would be ideal to have it in a way where we can manage that list or like update that list. And yeah, I'm kind of curious to know like what that looks like, if we publish like a certain schema or a certain definition, how we can update that definition, or if we're not updating the definition itself, how we can like add new things, like add new skills basically that like join a part of that definition. And like let's say Gitcoin, they have a different list that they manage, but that list, there's a metagame list of skills and the Gitcoin list of skills, but both of those are sort of pointing at the same like skills, rather than having separate lists and also separate like objects. Yeah, and I guess this is more so like a question of like what's the like best design patterns for these sort of things.
I mean, for the upgradability, if you do the kind of simple thing of just like storing a schema that has like a list of things you can select, then, I mean, you can use like, since it's a ceramic document, you can just make an update to that. So the identity that created that document can make an update. And now that update will be valid. And I don't know if this is implemented like this yet, but in IDX, and Paul, let me know if you have other kind of thoughts here. But basically, when you kind of first kind of set data to a definition in IDX, so you will create a document that's a reference document, and that will have the schema that's defined in the definition. And the schema will like get the version of the schema that it's like stored as. And now, so that even if you update the schema that your reference has will always kind of use the same version unless you explicitly update it. So if you go to that definition and reference again, you might want to update the data, and then you can just like bump the version of the schema. So I don't know if we have something to handle kind of that version management of the schema yet, but that's kind of where it's going. So you can like, well, first when you load the document, you can check which version of the schema it has, so you know which data format to expect. And then when you want to like go to the next version, that can just like say like, okay, this is the new data, this is the new version of the schema that I want to use. and you can just know the new version because you can load the schema document independently. If that makes sense.
Nice. And Joel, is the schema a standard JSON schema, or does the schema has some sort of like language has some sort of extension to include IDX references? Or something?
No, it's only standard JSON schema. So you kind of store a JSON schema in a ceramic tile document. And then when you create a new tile document, you can kind of set, okay, this tile should have this ceramic document as its schema. So then the protocol will like load that schema and then check the content and validate the schema towards that content.
Okay, but you can have links from one document to another. I think the properties of a document can be IDX. Can be ceramic documents.
Yeah, that's something we're trying to figure out how to best represent the links in a document. So probably what we'll end up doing is like when we're doing the JSON schema validation, it will just represent the document ID as a string. And then when you kind of use it in other ways, you might represent it as like an instance of a doc ID. And we might also support like instance of a CID. So you can like link to IPFS data. But yeah, I mean, when the validation is done, that will just like be a string.
Okay. If we are playing a trick on the experiments we are running, which is that the mutable reference ID can also be a CID that internally, when you resolve it, it doesn't have the content, but it says, oh, this is in ceramic and this is the ID of the ceramic document. And so everything is a CID, even mutable references.
So we're actually, so right now, the way we represent in the protocol a document is just like ceramic : / and then a CID. But we have actually designed and are in the middle of implementing document IDs. So they have their own multi-codec. And it's basically like multi-codec, and it says like some additional information like which document type it is, and then it encodes in line the bytes of the CID, and it could also include the version in the document ID. So the version is just like the CID of the latest tip of that version's tip of the document. So basically, like you can represent a whole either a version or just like the document in general with this document ID.
So what's the status on like the verifications? Like I know in 3box we have like the verified GitHub and Twitter. And I know for a lot of source code communities, that's a big thing. Like for us to be able to know, what's a certain users like GitHub or like right now the big need is Discord verification. What does that look like? And I guess like, is there something more shorter term that we can do with 3box, or is it best to wait for IDX for this? And if so, like, what does it look like in IDX?
Yeah. Okay. So if there's something shorter term for 3box for Discord, you mean?
Yeah.
I looked at that like a while back. I think the only thing you can do in terms of a verification is to have basically you need like an OAuth service and then you sign in with Discord, and then that you basically like sign a message, I guess, with your 3ID, and then you can link them. But then basically you just have that, because I don't think, have you played around with the Discord API?
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a way I can like have a bot that like, hey, send me your ID?
Yeah, you can get, people can message a bot with their ID. And then the bot will be able to read it. Yeah.
That's good. So what, yeah. what you could do, I'm just like ideating here. Like the easiest thing is probably if you have a bot, tell you like, hey, send me your 3ID, and you send it the DID, and then you have to go to a web page, and on that web page you have to like paste your Discord handle, and then kind of have the identity sign that, and then basically have that web page on the backend issue a proof that says like, hey, this is like I saw this on both sides. They're like verified, right?
Yeah. So the verification would basically be a signed message with the ETH address that's under that identity, and the message contains that Discord user's ID.
Yeah, roughly like that.
I mean, you could do like the Discord user posts a message that contains their DID.
That's what I said. So like you post a message that contains the DID to the bot, and then the bot is connected to the backend. So the backend like checks that you're the same ID on the both sides.
So how do we actually like get that verified thing into 3box? Is it literally just like, is there anything special about the verifications in 3box, or is it just like a key value of like proof Discord and then whatever the message is?
So we're using something called JWTs to do the verification for Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm actually tomorrow or on Friday, I'm gonna write a spec for our updated verification system for the new profile app. And it might make sense to kind of, if I do that and kind of create a very kind of simple overview of like how that service could work, then it might make sense to like copy kind of some of the code that we have already, but make that work with Discord.
Yeah. And
then use that in 3box, but also like easily migrate to IDX.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But yeah, I'll follow up on that probably mid next week or something.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess in the more like immediate actionable things for like RAID Guild and OneHive and stuff, I feel like the best path forward is to like sort of use metagames like GraphQL API as like a pseudo IDX, or like, you know, as if that were IDX, and we can sort of store the skills and store all these things there for now. And we can sort of collaborate on what things we want. And like the way our GraphQL API works is like we store very little data in ourselves, but we just merge data from 3box and the graph and various places. So if you guys have specific like things that you want in the profiles that we don't have already, like I don't know if RAID Guild does or OneHive, like for OneHive, are you guys storing everything in 3box right now? Like what other data gets populated in your profile?
Yeah, no, we currently are using just, we are currently just using the basic profile for now. Just basic profile that provided by 3box. But yeah, in the future, we may want to add the recognitions that I mentioned. And yeah, we could ask to add in the GraphQL API.
So the recognitions, that's kind of like, do you show that at all in your front end? Like, what is the front end look like?
We are not currently showing, but I can wait just a second. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically it's kind of like shows you like kind of a GitHub distribution of main recognitions. This is still TBD, but yeah, this is what we were thinking, sort of. And yeah, you can have like comments. I also wanted to ask, when you migrate the profiles, are you also going to provide kind of like API for threads, because we also may want to add comments for for proposals. When the community creates proposals, we also like to integrate comments. Because we haven't started in implementation because we know that you were going to migrate, and we didn't know if it makes sense to use the Threads API still.
Yeah, we're actually working with another team, Textile, to kind of connect their threads to IDX. So Textile is kind of more optimized towards that type of use case right now. So basically, like, Textile can be used together with IDX to do that type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
So the other thing you showed in the profiles was like the activity. Is that like, where are you guys fetching that data from?
Oh no, the activity for now is just when people stake on the proposals, and we also want to add basically comments when some people comment on proposals. But yeah, the data is fetched from the subgraph directly from our honeypot subgraph.
Okay, the honeypot subgraph, is that just like an Argon subgraph, or is it like a OneHive specific subgraph?
Yeah, it's a OneHive specific. It measures dandelion voting and conviction voting apps in just one subgraph. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's a good idea of where we can go with ceramic. And yeah, I think like right now best is just to like sort of mock or like use our centralized GraphQL service as like a stopgap between when we can have all this stuff ready in ceramic, and then start to like migrate pieces over. Like for us, like we're using the 3-box basic profiles. Anything that's not a part of that, we have in our own service. And then, things, I guess we slowly just like move piece by piece over. Like simple like key value fields are probably the easier things to move forward. Something like skills, maybe we'll want to think about a bit in terms of how it's structured. And then, yeah, I guess my last question was like, is there any ability to like search or query, or, like, let's say if I want to find everyone who has a certain skill, is that possible at all? Or probably like does that like whole thing of like, privacy and like how we control access to that like but a big part of like metagame too is like our ability to be able to like search all the players and see who's in what and who has what skills and whatnot.
Yeah. No, I think for public data, it should be straightforward once. So we have been having conversations with the graph on like how to index ceramic. And I mean, if you have like a list of Ethereum addresses, I think it should be fairly trivial once, the graph is ready to add the ceramic extension to kind of just also index like the specific definitions in your IDX that you kind of care about. Yeah, that's kind of global queries is not something that we kind of right now natively support in the protocol.
Okay, but like if I give a set of Ethereum addresses, I could, like, I would just have to fetch all the profiles and then filter them myself on the like server side, I guess.
Yeah,
or
could that's the approach you would use now, I guess. And when we have like a graph integration, then you should be able to like, okay, this definition, give me all users that have this skill. I mean, that should be possible once that's there.
Okay, cool. I got to jump to another call, but yeah, this was helpful. I think we'll continue working on it. And OneHive people, like we can, I can let you know, I guess, what some of the APIs look like. And like I think the Discord stuff will be useful for you guys as well. Where, you know, on your profiles, like I know you guys use like the pollen and the flora and whatever not, so we could have those like roles show up on your profiles.
Yeah, that will be definitely very useful.
Cool. And I'll try to set this call up on a regular cadence and try to make like a collaborative agenda for it. So we can kind of make it more of like a profile selling point.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool if when we figure out the Discord thing, so Joel, you owe them that spec, the Discord verification, and then secondly, I think it'd probably make sense to start, you know, creating like a shared document or something before we move to like CIPs to just start to understand like what are those definitions we might want to create to extend the basic profile within the ecosystem here. So like whether it's like skills is like a definition, and then there might be like, I don't know, groups or NFT showcase, or like, you know, what are the definitions that we all want? And I think we could start to even get clarity on those. Yeah, that would be generally helpful.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks. See you next time around.
Thank you.